Earlier today, President Trump gave a speech before the NATO alliance calling for member nations to pay their fair share. Some people in the mainstream media blasted President Trump for making such a declaration. But on November 15th of last year, before a speech, President Obama not only echoed the same message, but said that President Trump would be committed to the assembly and continued maintenance of great relationships between the United States and member nations of NATO. President Obama has also, prior to that, called for NATO member nations to pay their fair share for defense, and I'm paraphrasing, not use the United States as their defender. The call is a logical one because we're in an era of the International Division of Labor. What does that mean? It means that a 787 Dreamliner by Boeing, which say 30 years ago would have been made primarily in the United States, perhaps 80%, no longer the case. Now, 96% of its parts are made in 96 different countries. The vast majority of the 787 airframe is not made in the United States. Some parts are in Japan, some Germany, some Indonesia, 96 countries. The final assembly point is the United States. That wasn't always the case. Think about it further. What does that mean? It means there are more places around the world capable of making parts, if not whole aircraft, that can then be used by, among others, NATO alliance members and the United States. Look at the Airbus A3 series, and not to mention the Airbus, but also the competition for contracts, for airplane contracts within the military. Sometimes the European Union, in the form of Airbus, participates in them. American contracts. Now, consider this. During the Reagan administration, the best way to maintain economic development from the perspective of a congressperson was to get a contract, a defense contract for defense contractors in that congressperson's area. Today, that same contract or type of contract, even though it's far more expensive, is just as likely to enrich a company that may be located in China as it is a company that may be located in, say, Skokie, Illinois. It's a different world today. And so if you have NATO member nations, to use one example, as benefiting, or I should say more to the point, as containing organizations, companies, private organizations that benefit from American defense spending, then it's only right that those same countries pay their fair share for NATO. Why not? The companies that are defense contractors in those nations, like France, for example, are also the same companies that can provide or do provide equipment to the French equivalent of the American Navy and American Air Force. I can go on and on and on. They're the ones that make money in France, and they pay taxes to the French. The French can take part of that tax and pour it into NATO. They can take part of that tax and pour it into defense of other countries that are within NATO. So President Obama was right, and President Trump is right. To criticize President Trump for something President Obama has said and Trump is only echoing is wrong.